And even though they all knew, all were told that this is unverified, uncorroborated, Hillary paid for it, and Steele hated Trump. A pack of lies. They tried to get its salacious contents, and they did, out to the general public. Purposefully lying, propagandizing you, we, the American people. We have top DOJ and FBI officials. Those are the same people that saved Hillary Clinton from being indicted, something that would have happened to all of us. They worked on her behalf, used her lies to commit fraud on FISA courts, spy on the Trump campaign, even before the election and after the election. And it's all now becoming crystal clear tonight. But this is only the beginning. What we now have is the beginning of a cascade of information and materials that will be corroborating everything we have been telling you over the last 2 years. So tonight I can tell you, expect more damning revelations about how the dossier was written, where its information was derived, and how high-ranking officials inside our federal government abused their power to help Hillary get elected and then later to take down Donald Trump. Now, we are on the cusp of what is an avalanche of new developments. Joining us now, the author of the #1 bestseller, he nailed it in his book, The Russia Hoax, Greg Jarrett. Also joining us, Fox News investigative reporter Sarah Carter, Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows. You know, Congressman, this got started with Sarah and John, and then thereafter with Greg very soon thereafter. And all throughout this process, we would have you on as a guest at different times, radio and TV, and I'd always ask the same question. Am I wrong? Is there anything that you hear that I'm saying I'm wrong? I'd ask you, am I over the target? And you said, you didn't see one thing that we reported that was wrong. Now it's all being corroborated.
Great reporting on it, as you've mentioned previously, but what we're starting to see is the rest of the story come out. And there are two standards, one for Hillary Clinton, which got a pass, she got a pass, and one for Donald Trump, who doesn't get a pass and doesn't get a break on any of it. In fact, it's a coordinated effort to make sure that they do this, to bring him down. Here's the other interesting fact. You know, when you talk about Robert Mueller and Andrew McCabe and names that actually you've made household names, what we forget is those are two individuals who actually wanted a job with this president, and the minute they didn't get it, they started investigating him. It's time that we hold people accountable in Washington, D.C.
Let me go to Sarah. You know, look at the developments with the release of the closed-door testimony of Orr and Page and Strzok and McCain's aide. The new developments tonight that we now know, when I'll ask Greg the legality of all this in a minute, but Sarah, but now we know the media bought it hook, line, and sinker. They were fed phony information. They disseminated phony information. It was Hillary paid for Russian lies. They did it to influence the election. Now, my question is, what part of that doesn't fit the mandate of Robert Mueller's investigation? Tell me what part is not in. Why does that not fit the wheelhouse here?
Well, it absolutely should fit the wheelhouse. Sean, this was a classic disinformation intelligence operation. Let me explain this to you. This is what happens in other countries, what intelligence agencies do in other countries when they're targeting somebody in a government. But instead what happened is the FBI and the DOJ, the Justice Department, high-level officials within those departments who had the power, the access, and the authority targeted the President of the United States, and they also targeted the Trump campaign. I don't understand how this cannot be one of the biggest stories in modern political history, and how Robert Mueller did not include that in his mandate is beyond me. But the most important thing is that William Barr, the new Attorney General, and others inside the DOJ have to launch a full-fledged investigation, and if not, open up a second special counsel to investigate everyone. This is probably one of the biggest stories, political stories of our lifetime. And when we look what they did and how they spread that information, I mean, that's why they went to McCain's guy, right? David Kramer. They wanted to solidify that information. So once they got it to him and they moved it, a lot of people didn't even want to report on this. I heard about this. A lot of reporters had heard about this dossier. But remember, it wasn't until Brennan and James Clapper actually briefed President Trump about this that BuzzFeed then published the entire dossier, and CNN just shortly after wrote the story. They wanted to make it real. They wanted to make lies real.
Well, they
and
did.
Remember,
and
they did.
Greg, first they gave Hillary a get-out-of-jail-free card. I mean, we got to remember that's a big part of the equation here. Then the very same people involved in that, they used her bought and paid for Russian lies. They disseminated it like the former Soviet Union, great propaganda. Why? To influence an election with her Russian lies. And then they used it to actually spy on the Trump campaign before and after the election, and to bludgeon and destroy a sitting duly elected president.
Correct.
The story is now irrefutable at this point.
Sure.
And I'll ask Congressman Meadows in a second. More is coming.
Yeah, you know, if the Hillary Clinton investigation was rigged in her favor for political purposes, that's obstruction of justice. And intentionally using a falsified document presented to a judge to obtain a warrant, that's also obstruction of justice in 5 other crimes, including deprivation of rights under color of law. So I agree with Sarah, and I'm sure the congressman does as well. There needs to be a legitimate investigation by either William Barr and his team of prosecutors or by a special counsel, as Lindsey Graham has advocated.
All right, let me ask you all three a very important parting question. Congressman Meadows, you have seen more than any of us here, and I know probably some you can't discuss. But let's talk about the volume of what is to come. We know about we haven't seen the FISA applications, 302s, Gang 8. That's all coming. And the interviews. More than that, too?
Well, there is more than that. So it's not just some of the transcribed interviews that you're talking about, Sean, but it is additional information that is coming out that will show not only was there no collusion, but there was a coordinated effort to take this president down. We talk about the deep state. There are players now, even ambassadors that are sitting ambassadors that were involved in part of this with the FBI and DOJ. And so as we look at this, it's time that we show the American people what's out there, declassify some of those documents. I think when the American people see what I've seen, they will judge for themselves and know that this has all been a hoax.
What more do you expect to come? I only have about 30 seconds each, Sarah and Greg.
Well, I think Christopher Steele's deposition in Florida, which should be released any day now, will be very revealing. I think we'll find out that he essentially admits it was all made up. It was a hoax, and the FBI knew it. They didn't care. They used it as a pretext to destroy Trump.
Sarah, you've identified, along with John, 5 buckets.
Oh, yeah. So not only will those 5 buckets be extraordinarily important, Sean, but once they dig in deep into all of this, and I'm talking about the DOJ, and this investigation continues, I think they'll be discovering so much more malfeasance within the FBI and DOJ that went far beyond even Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and the 2016 election. Remember, a lot of other things are going to be unearthed because of this, and this is what they were so afraid of.
There will be indictments. Buckle up. Criminal referrals next. Indictments, I would argue, very soon thereafter. Thank you all. When we come back, Glenn Beck talks seriously about the dangers of socialism. Later, Dev